Welcome to the DRM Deliverance and Restoration Ministry. I'm Rachael Wyse-Mason, and today I'll be continuing my series on the open window. So before we even start, guys, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave your comments. Make sure that if anything again register with anything we said to you today, just leave a comment and encourage someone else to watch the message. So in our previous 3 sessions, in our first, we had talked about the window opener, and with that we had talked about faithfulness and fruitfulness. In our second session, we had talked about the window shutter or the window jammer, which is pride and the spirit of offense. And in our third session, we had talked about the window that is always open, which is the window to assist others. In this session, I want to talk about the window that is not always open, and that is the window that could shut. That is a better title, the window that could shut. And again, when we had described open windows, we said that my husband Deryck Mason had gotten a prophecy that 2021 was going to be the year of an open window. And a window represents an opportunity for growth, for development, a new level, a new season. But windows are not doors, so they're smaller opportunities. They are not as direct, but they can still lead you to where it is that God needs you to be at this time. So there's still excellent windows of opportunities that we can grasp to fulfill the purpose that God called us to live. So I want to talk today about this window that can shut. And this window is the window that can shut has to really teaches us about learning to seize the moment and taking advantage of windows when in fact they are open and not waiting for when they're shut to try to access them. So I had previously had mentioned to you guys about, I believe in our second session, about where I had taken up, after being offended, had taken up the spirit of humility. And someone had started a project or work that I really wanted to join on, and with asking and offering my services and working really hard at it, the person was really impressed with my work. I'd also done a course with them, and what started to happen is that window of humility, that opened that window to that project where I volunteered my service and it worked well, produced windows and doors behind that window. Alright, so that window led to another window, led to another window, led to doors, kind of thing. So the person for that project started just inviting me into a lot of other things that they were involved in. And I really tried my best to keep that spirit of humility, because I learned my lesson to keep that spirit of humility and a spirit of excellence in everything that I had worked on. And with that, it encouraged the person more to try to work with me and to assist me. So that same person, I remember some time had passed and they had sent me an email to do a course, and it was supposed to be for members of the Caribbean. Nothing in particular, I'll be honest, that I was interested in. So I read it. I wasn't too interested, and then when I read the ad and what they expected, the expectations for those who apply, I realized I didn't meet the criteria. They wanted someone with a very strong business background or business training, which I did not have. So I thought, well, I didn't do any business courses, anything like that. I'm not qualified to do this. And they mentioned strong business background twice, so I know they really mean it. So I messaged him and I said, this looks great, but I don't meet the qualifications. I don't think I should do this. And they were like, yes, you need to do it, apply, you'll get through. So I was like, okay, you know what, I don't want to come off as if I'm not trying or I'm being laid back or I'm being lazy. So let me try to really apply and at least see if I can get through. So they required you to do a business plan to submit with your documents. I had no idea and still don't have a really good idea of what that is. And so I started calling up persons and I'm like, okay, you know what a business plan is? Could you help me? And I called my auntie, and my auntie Suzanne said that that she will help me with it. So I sent all the documents. I got my stuff together, and the thing was due Friday, and I went by her Wednesday night to work on the business plan. Enough time, get my documents together Thursday, and submit this thing Thursday night, way before the deadline, Friday midnight. So I went to her house. We set up our laptop, set up the documents, and she started reading while I started taking out some of the other items. And she was like, Rachael, when is thing due? I'm like, Friday midnight. She's like, no. She said, this thing due tonight at midnight. I was like, say what? I'm sorry, what? She's like, this thing is due tonight, midnight, not Friday. Do you have the other stuff together or whatnot? I'm like, I had started putting it together. I think so. I'm like, but wait. Are you saying this thing is due tonight? She was like, yes. So I remember I was like, pause. I was like, okay, here what? I need to decide if I'm going through with this thing or not. I said, because now, instead of days, I have hours to complete this business plan, fill out the application form, find my documents and submit my documents. I don't have the qualification. I'm really interested in doing this course anyway. The timing of the course is terrible. Maybe this is God telling me that I should just let this whole thing go. And I remember I sat down there on the chair, and my aunt and Deryck were there, and they're like, so what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You're gonna apply, And I was like, okay, give me 2 seconds. And I was like, God, you tell me, what should I do? Should I apply, or should I give up, or should I go? And I just heard go. Try. So I was like, but God, what? I mean, it could be God that they would bring this again another time, and I don't have to apply now. It could probably come back again next year, and I could apply for it next year. Or what if they just extend the deadline and I don't have to rush now, and they extend the deadline, and I don't have to rush, and I could try again, and maybe they'll extend it to Friday. And I just heard in my spirit, try, go, try. So I was like, you know what? Here what? I say we're gonna try. At least if I didn't get through, it must be because I made an effort and my effort was not enough. But it kind of said I didn't get through because I gave up before, or I didn't try hard enough and I gave up before. So I said, okay, let's try. So I sat down with my aunt, and whatever business plan thing that they were expecting, we did something. We just wrote something else and whatnot, wrote what we think it was. We couldn't go to check the theories and the books and whatever they had and how to structure. We just wrote something up. I rushed home. I gathered all the documents, got everything scanned, full out all the forms. Guys, 1 minute till midnight I had submitted. When it's loading and it's after 12, only because I started the loading process before midnight, at 12:02 I got a notification that everything was submitted on time. I was like, whoa, that was a rush. So I just relaxed and I said, well, at least I got it in. It wasn't the best. I probably skipped some of my questions. I don't know. But let's see what this takes us. So it had to go through an interview process. And then after the interview, you had to be shortlisted, go through an interview. And then after the interview, then you'll be determined if you will be accepted to go or not. And this was like an interview with internationals. So I went through, I submitted, I got a notice that I was in the short list of persons to be interviewed. I was like, okay. I thought the no business thing would have kicked me out of the bag, but okay, this looked like I might be able to get through. And then I did the interview, and then I got selected to do the course. Now, lesson 5 and 6 deals with some issue with that course, but I can tell you this from it up front. It was the timing was needed to get done then. There, because of that course, there were doors that immediately opened to me. As I had completed that course, I gotten invited to join a committee, and they were looking to start a program or course within a couple months. And because of what I had learned, I was able to give some ideas and give some tips of what we and things we can do in order to boost that course. And there were so many other doors that open, and now there's so I would tell you guys about those doors into windows after in segment 5 and 6. Don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much. But I was thinking about how much timing comes into play when it comes to windows, that windows are not always open to us, that there's some windows that do close, the window that can close on you, and you have to be able to know the timing and what God is telling you. And sometimes God needs you to do that at that moment. You don't have the opportunity to delay or to say no or to say, let me think about it. You have to make a decision then and there about whether you're going to go through with it or not, or if you're going to be a part of it or not. And the thing is about timing with God is that you always want to make sure that you're not ahead of Him. You also want to make sure that you're not behind. You're not delaying, you're not procrastinating, but you're moving exactly in alignment to His timing and to His will. So there are times when God's timing is obvious, like is where he lets you know now, like move now. And that is where God can orchestrate things that you know that when it happens is not a coincidence. And that's like persons who receive like a prophetic word or a prophetic dream. I remember earlier this year, when the COVID restrictions were beginning to ease, and it would have allowed me to return to the studio, I had actually gotten a dream of Mrs. Alcock telling me that when asking me when I'm going to come back to the studio and join Deryck back for these sessions, and that was the time like when God was ministering windows to me. The dream was so real. I was talking to Deryck, hey, remember when Mrs. E told me? And he was like, what? I'm like, wait, no, I did not. That was a dream. I am so sorry. I thought it was real. That means that I really need to, we need to get on the scene. I need to come back. And I think I had shared about 4 sessions on air with that. I think about Acts 69, where Paul had gotten that dream about the man from Macedonia asking him to come to deal minister to them. I'm thinking of the way God works His timing in Esther 6. After Queen Esther had went to make a request to the king, and she asked for a banquet, and that night the king could not sleep, and Haman, being invited to the banquet, got more puffed up in himself and decided that he was going to ask the king to be brave and ask the king to have Mordecai killed. And that night, so Queen Esther had asked for the banquet. Haman made up his mind to ask the king the next day to have Mordecai killed. That night, the king couldn't sleep and went to his chambers to read about the chronicles or the stories of kings so that he could fall asleep. And that's when he heard when Mordecai had saved him from the assassins. And he was like, how was this man rewarded? And he wasn't. God has his way of working out timings like so perfect. It's not human. It is only him. And when Haman came the next day, the king started asking, what should the king do for a man that he wishes to honor? And Haman, started to feel up and puff up himself and get a horse, the king's horse, and garments and this, and a man walking through. And the king said, well, do this to Mordecai. And Haman couldn't ask Mordecai to be killed. So God had intervened just then. And the thing is, the Bible had mentioned another example, one that I really want to mention, concerning timing. There's one particular scripture that I wish to expand on again when it comes to the perfect timing of God, or when you know it's no, and He's gonna work it out. And that has to do with when Elisha, the Shunammite woman, had after she did the room for him, like he really had a good relationship with her. And he advised her that about the famine and told her to go 7 years into the land of the Philistines so that she would be able to withstand the famine. And because she was away for 7 years, she had lost all her land. And in 2 Kings 8, Gehazi, which was Elisha's servant, was speaking to the king. And the story from 2 Kings 8 starts from verse 4 for us. And she said, as she came in, the king was talking with Gehazi, the servant of the man of God. The king had just said, tell me some stories about the great things Elisha had done. And Gehazi telling the king about the time Elisha had brought a boy back to life. So remember in our third segment, we had talked about how Elisha had brought Shunammite woman's son back to life. At that very moment, the mother of the boy walked in to make her appeal to the king about her house and her land. So you see, God really had the Shunammite woman in mind. Look, my lord, Gehazi exclaimed. Here is the woman now, and this is her son, the very one Elisha brought back to life. Is this true? The king asked her, and she told him the story. So he directed one of his officials to see that everything she had lost was restored to her, including the value of any crops that had been harvested during her absence. So even what she wasn't there for, she had regained. And the thing is about timing is that sometimes, because like for me, I wasn't sure like what to do, and I take that moment to pray. Sometimes I'm not sure, sometimes there's doubt, sometimes you want to have your own mindset. In these cases, it's very clear like God was obviously working the timing out, but there will be times when the timing, like for me, or what would not be so clear. You wouldn't be sure, should I go now, should I wait, what should I do, and you have to be able to really pay attention to that small voice of God, which is not always an easy thing to do. And you have to disregard how you feel and disregard what is the circumstance sometimes all the time, and just really pay attention to the voice of God. And there are times when God would just choose not to speak. And He would expect you to take a step of faith. And just take a step and just do what you need to do. Just know that, try now, don't delay. Just don't allow that spirit of procrastination to come in. Just do it now. So, now, an example of this was, this came to me with Esther 5. When it is that she had to go before the king to make her appeal concerning her people. And you read the chapter and you hear Esther arguing back and forth, he doesn't know, I will be safe. And then Mordecai said, don't you know that you were called for such a time like this? And she said, okay, get the ladies who are going to pray and fast. Everybody pray and fast for me for 3 days. And she prayed and fast, and she took that step of faith that she would have received the favor she needed from the king in order to make her appeal to him. And God made that window. She took that lead, she took that opportunity, and God opened that window up onto her. And there are persons that, as much as we are very prone to procrastinating and to delay, we also have to be careful of those that will always try to rush us into getting into windows before time. And it's a technique of persons who are in sales. No offense to anybody in sales, but it's a technique for persons who are in sales to always let you feel like you have to get a deal now. Like you have to get this now. Don't wait. If you wait, you lose this, you lose that, you lose this opportunity, you lose that opportunity, and it's a tactic. And I've learned that many times, particularly when it's sales. Before, I used to fall for that tactic of it has to be done now. So I'd be like, no, this is something that I want to wait on, I want to pray about, and I get an answer from God. And I have learned, and you really have to tap in to know when it's time to do now and then when it's time to delay. This time and peace is not always an easy one. Now, the thing is, why is it important is that you cannot afford to miss your timing. And with this, I want to take us to Numbers 14, verses 30 to 45. So this occurred after Moses and they had left Egypt, and they sent their spies out to the promised land in order to get an idea of who would be the occupants of the promised land. And the 12 returned, 10 with a negative report, and only Caleb and Joshua with a positive report. And the 10 had said that, they are big like giants, and their grapes are held between two persons, we cannot conquer. And the 2 said, yes, with the Spirit of God we can. And we will pick this up from verse 30. And God said, you will not enter and occupy the land I swore to give you. The only exceptions will be Caleb, son of Zephaniah, and Joshua, son of Nun. The 10, we go down now to verse 36. And it said that the 10 men Moses had sent to explore the land, the ones who incited rebellion against the Lord with their bad report, were struck dead with the plague before the Lord. Of the 12 who had explored the land, only Joshua and Caleb remained alive. When Moses reported the Lord's words to all the Israelites, the people were filled with grief. Then they got up early the next morning and went to the top of the range of the hills. Let's go, they said. We realize that we have sinned, but now we are ready to enter the land the Lord has promised us. But Moses said, why are you now disobeying the Lord's orders to return to the wilderness? It won't work. Do not go up into the land now. You will only be crushed by your enemies because the Lord is not with you. When you face the Amalekites and Canaanites in battle, you will be slaughtered. The Lord will abandon you because you have abandoned the Lord. But the people defiantly pushed ahead toward the hill country, even though neither Moses nor the ark of the Lord's covenant left the camp. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived in those hills came down and attacked them, chased them back as far as Hormah. So this scripture is so fitting into when we miss our timing. God had planned for them to enter the promised land then, but because they had rebelled, he had now destined for them to go through the wilderness, and then they wanted to change their mind and then go back. But he was not with them. And we have to recognize that sometimes windows, we have to be in time with the windows. And it brings me back to even to Abraham and Sarah, where God had given them the promise of a child. And they went ahead of God and thought, well, God probably had meant it. Well, if it didn't happen yet, he probably meant it and that we should have it through Hagar. And they had Ishmael. And then, as some say, that had actually delayed the timing for Isaac to actually be born. So we have to be really, really careful of not being behind God as the Israelites, but also not being ahead of God as Abraham and Sarah. Someone may ask you to do something and you have a very small time frame in which to give an answer. And not all the time could the world, persons, or the task wait. Particularly if you're procrastinating with your answer and there's a deliberate delay, can't always wait for your response. And they may give the opportunity to someone else, and they will be the ones to receive the blessings that you could have received if you were able to give an answer at the right time. My course had to be at the right time. I remember there was even an incident with Deryck and I a few years back, 2019, where we were supposed to get something done, and in it we did not respond as I believe that God had wanted us to respond, and it did not really work out the way that we had liked it to work out. And then COVID brought even further delays, and it kept getting pushed back. And I kept thinking, maybe if we had said yes, then when I know God had said yes, and if we had said yes in the right timing, it would have worked out. But at the end, what it is that I love about God is that even if you miss the timing, it's not necessarily the end. The Israelites got delayed by 40 years before they reached the promised land, but they got to their promised land. Abraham and Sarah went ahead of God and had Ishmael, but they still got their Isaac. We had missed our opportunity in 2019, but I know it's going to come forward. Whenever God decides to let it happen, that is going to happen. So don't be discouraged if you missed your timing of the delay. God is a God that He would allow opportunities to come back and to give us a second chance. Not all the time, but sometimes. So is Ecclesiastes 3:1, you all know this. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. So guys, don't delay. Take that window while it still remains open. Thank you so much for your time. Don't forget, guys, again, to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave your comments if there's anything that had registered with you during this session. And I will see you again next week for a continuation of our series of An Open Window, where we deal with session 5, the window smaller than the door. Stay tuned.